everyone. This is Professor Ashish Bhatnagar, Department of Computer Science, IMS Ghaziabad University Courses Campus. In this lecture today, I will discuss about basic concept of Angular. So, what basically the meaning of Angular? What is the usage of Angular? How is Angular is basically used to create a dynamic web pages? So, there are lots of options which I will cover in these sessions. So first of all, we are just to go in for the introduction. So AngularJS, as you know, the previously known as the JS, AngularJS is an open source JavaScript based web applications development framework. Currently, Angular is one of the best framework for developing single page applications. The definition of Angular is represented as is a structural framework for dynamic web applications. It lets you use HTML as your template language and let your extended HTML syntax to express your application components clearly. And secondly, its data binding and data dependency injections eliminate much of the code you currently have to write. And it all happens within the browser, making it an ideal partner with any server technology. So most common questions before starting Angular is what is Angular? So in common words, in general terms, we are just to represent the Angular is a MVC based structure framework, a single page application based framework, a client side template, a scripting language where code can be easily tested by our unit testing. History of Angular. As we have just already discussed, the famous, you can say the first version of Angular was AngularJS, which is developed by Mesoko Haveri and Adam Abrams as a side project in 2009. They created a project called GetAngular, which is an end-to-end tool that allows web designer or developers to interact with both the front end and the back end. Afterwards, Google took this project and named it as AngularJS and started to build the entire framework. The Google released the first API version 1.0 of AngularJS in May 2011. From 2.0 version, Google renamed the project from AngularJS to Angular. And here you have just to see the basic summarization of history about Angular. So why Angular is called a framework? As you know, Angular is an open source and designed and developed by the Google. So you can say Angular is in depth. The dictionary define tell us what our framework is essential supporting structure. To sum up Angular very nicely, although Angular is much more than that. Angular is a large and helpful community, an ecosystem in which you can find new tools and utilities, an ingenious way of solving common problems. And for many, a new and refreshing way of thinking about applications, structure and design. If we wanted to make our life harder for ourselves by writing our own framework, realistically, for most of us, this is just not impossible. It almost goes without saying that you need some kind of support, you can say some kind of framework, and this framework almost certainly should be something other than your own undocumented ideas and thoughts about how things should be done. A good framework such as Angular is already well tested and well understood by others. Keep in mind that others may inherit your code, be on your team, or otherwise need to benefit from the structure and support a framework provides. Advantages. So there are certain advantages of AngularJS. The first advantage, there is no need to observable functions. Angular analyzes the page DOM and builds the binding based on Angular specific elements attributes. Angular modifies the page DOM directly instead of adding inner HTML code that is faster. Data binding does not occur on each control or value change, but a particular point of the JavaScript code executions. There are quite a number of different ways to do the same things that are accommodating to particular development styles and tasks. It is supported by IntelliJ IDEA and Visual Studio.NET IDEs. It is supported by Google and a great development community. AngularJS is more intuitive and it makes use of HTML as a declarative language. Moreover, it is less brittle for reorganizing. So there are certain versions. So the first version we have already discussed, the AngularJS. After that, we are just to switch on the Angular 2. Angular 2 is a complete rewrite of AngularJS and is considered a different framework from its predecessors. Angular 4, at the end of 2016, skipping version 3, Angular 4 was released. It was done to avoid confusion due to the mismatch of the router package versions, already distributed with version 3.3. Angular 4, of course, added a new package of features, included a more efficient, more accessible library to create HTTP request, HTTP client. The final version was released in March 2017. Angular 5, this version of Angular was released on November 2017. Key improvement introductions introduced by Angular 5 include support for progressive web applications and build optimizer. Angular 6 focused heavily on add-ons and tools for framework on itself. It emphasized updating Angular elements, Angular material, CDK components, CLI workspace, library support, and so on. After that, Angular 7, Angular 8, Angular 9. So these are numbers of versions which was released yearly. Like Angular 7 was released on 2018, Angular 8 was released on 2019, 9 was released on 2020, 10 was released after that, and in Angular 11 was released on 11 November 2020. After that, 2021, Angular 12 was introduced. So these are the different versions as you are seeing that. So Angular directives, what is the actually meaning? So in the context of Angular, ng container, ng template, ng content are three different Angular directives, which is, you can see the frame, most important directives in the Angular, right? So ng containers means the container is a non-rendering element that is used to group and manage structural directives such as *ngif, *ngfor. It acts as a placeholder or wrapper for these structural directives when they need to be applied to multiple elements or when you want to use them without adding additional DOM elements. So as you are seeing that ng container *ng if, which is equal to condition, and the condition is true, the given element inside this ng container tag will execute. Ng template. The ng template directives defines an Angular template that can be used to encapsulate HTML markup and Angular code that would not be rendered immediately. It acts as a template placeholder and can be referenced using the *ng template outlet directive or by using the ng container element with the *ng template outlet attributes. ng template is particularly useful when you want to reuse a piece of HTML code with its associated logic in the multiple places. For example, in this given code, you have to write ng template, given the name of hash by template. You are just to define the template content here inside this ng template tag, and ng container where you are just to define my template. You are just to represent the my template with the properties *ng template outlet. ng content. ng content directive is used to create content projection slots within a component. It allows you to pass content from the parent component to the child component template. When you define ng content tag in the child component template, it acts as a placeholder for the content that will be projected into it from the parent component. For example, we have a tag which is called the app child. You just to define the project into the app child tag. So by combining this concept, you create components that are more dynamic, adaptable. ng container, ng template, and ng content help you organize and structure your template in a way that makes your code more readable and maintainable. So what we have just to basically required to install the Angular, I have just to consider the Angular 7. If I install the Angular 7 into my PC or in laptop, I need the basic requirement to installation. Before installation, the first one is a Node.js, second is Angular CLI 7.0 version, TypeScript, and Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio Microsoft, you can see the code editor. Finally, conclusions. Angular is one of the best and robust complete front-end frameworks available today, built and maintained by Google. It is an ideal for building single-page applications, often clean architectures, fast rendering, and high maintainability. Angular supports for two-way data binding, components-based structure, dependency injections, routing simplifies complex application development. The evaluation from AngularJS to Angular 12 Plus shows its maturity and adaptability in the modern web development ecosystem. With the tools like Angular CLI, ng-template, ng-content, ng-container, developers get immense power to build modular, dynamic, and scalable applications. Angular offers support, you can say the strong support from the community. It's widely adopted in the industry and is backed by top IDEs like Visual Studio Code and IntelliJ. So this is the basic intro about the AngularJS. Thank you so much for watching this video.